Yeah, it's a hard thing for young people to get with these pieces. And these pieces, you know, many of the great pieces, we really don't even want to play them until we feel that we've had enough life experience to know what these pieces are really about. And but on the other hand, I guess it's possible within the world of theater to actually try to play to be cast in a role that's where you are older than your natural. You're playing someone older. But it's a very hard thing. The sense of time that one has as an older person as opposed to a younger person, you know, and then the issues of life. That mortality begins to make itself felt and thought about. Okay, so the next piece is the famous Mozart string trio divertimento, which is actually one of the hardest string pieces in the literature. You're going to see something interesting, which is that this group wanted to stand and play this piece. And I think it's actually quite a good idea, because like the three last quartets of Mozart, which were dedicated to the King of Prussia, who was a cellist and who commissioned those pieces for himself, these are not, this is a concerto for three instruments, basically. And they're very, very difficult parts. But this is very late Mozart, and everyone has always wondered, from a piece like this, they've tried to have an inkling about what, if Mozart had lived longer, what might he have produced. Somehow we find ourselves satisfied with late Beethoven. Of course, we wonder what he would also have produced, but Mozart died so very young. And so many things about this piece tell us where his craft was headed. So we're going to hear the Divertimento of Mozart, K563, which was written in 1788, by the way. Jessica Fellows, violin, Erica Galing, viola, and Ariana Nelson on cello. Give them a big hand. Bravo. Okay. You all play beautifully. It's lovely, lovely performing. For me, you know, what I said to the audience before you came out was that this is really a concerto for 3 instruments, and that's, I know you. Tell us why you decided to stand. By the way, what was your thinking about this? Because I've never played it standing. I've only played it sitting. So.
It's just easier for us to play more soloistically than
So
when we're
okay,
sitting.
okay, all right. Well, I think you can go further. My sense is, you know, there are times in chamber music when we are very accommodating to each other, but in this piece you want to be more competitive, actually, all the time. Yeah. So I would be careful, and because there are only 3 instruments, sometimes we have to actually produce more sound than we're used to producing, even when we're just accompanying. So for me, the difference between piano and forte, which is all you really got in this piece, wasn't enough. Wasn't enough. In other words, to fill out the fortes. Here, I'll get on this side of you so the camera can see you. But to fill out the fortes takes quite a bit of sound all the time, you know. And when you play legato, yeah, has to be more sound. Yeah. In other words, if you're going to stand, then you got to play like it's a concerto. Okay. So follow it through, and all will be well. Be careful in the, you know, these first 2 bars are kind of like the opposite of a rocket theme, or a failed rocket theme. Make sure that it lasts long enough. At the moment, it's always a little bit over the tempo. It should be something which is a little bit mysterious, and then all of a sudden you spring into action. At the moment, it's not quite, it doesn't last long enough, okay? So give it a try. And then be as concerto, you know, I mean, obviously, there are many of us who are old enough to remember that when early music style hadn't really made it at least to our shores, and scholarly editions were incredibly expensive. They're still expensive. But we couldn't really get our hands on them. And now, of course, you're playing over what is a pretty good scholarly edition. But you really had to work, and we didn't have the internet. You know, we're in the dark ages to some extent. But if you wanted access to what the composer had really put onto the page, it was not easy back then. Okay, so go with it and enjoy the benefits that you have. And of course, now you could. Anybody seen a manuscript to this? I don't know where it is, but it probably does exist. Okay, so give it a try and be as flamboyant as you wish to be with the passage work. You know, this is a long piece. It takes about 45 minutes to play, 6 movements, and it's thought of as being really the vanguard of Mozart, and it's kind of, one thinks almost as though it's a description of life as it could be lived, you know? Not necessarily the way we do live life, not with the realities of it, but in a kind of ideal world. Yeah, but that's not to say there aren't tensions. But I'm very interested in the front of the development, actually, how that all played out, because there are some big shockers in terms of the harmonies, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, make sure you're really counting. It's going to have a different sound if you really count the all the notes, all the pulses. Yeah. But I think now she's going into concerto mode. I think you've got to play more orchestrally in your accompaniment. Support her more, okay? We just need more. And I know you're trying to make the first note a little, you know, as a good staccato appoggiatura, but make sure it's big, both of them. Yeah, and you know, you don't have to make these first bars particularly espressivo either. They can kind of sit there. There ain't much going on here. It's not like it's a phrase. You know, there's something mysterious about it, and then it warms up. So be patient with it. Yeah. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah. So this fortepiano is on an up bow, right?
Yes.
Okay. But it sounds to me more like a sforzando than a fortepiano. In other words, with a fortepiano, what's the difference? The difference is that we need a moment of real forte, right? And why is it there? Yeah. You know, it's the worst possible scenario, diminished chord, in those days. You know, it's a little bit of thunder or something. Yeah. And we want, and it should kind of surprise them. And you know, if they had wine, it should still wake them up a little bit. You know, with dinner. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's do from yeah. You know what it is? Alone. Don't crescendo it so much at the end. And you can crash in because you introduce a new dynamic. Okay? One more time, sing. Yeah, but I'm still not impressed with the second note. I hear It's not forte. Come on, you guys. Be nice to her. Okay. Okay, and so this is your first real cadence in the piece. Make sure that yum bum bim bum bum that they don't that the chords, which are all different and fast harmonic rhythm, don't sound exactly alike. Yum bum, right? 2 minor, 5 1. Bum bum. You give it a shape. Okay. So where are we going to do from? Do from the fortepiano. Yeah, you want to try it on a down bow? It would be better. I'm just telling you. This is my own experience. Speaking from experience. Okay. Yeah, but don't. You know, you're wonderful players, and you're looking forward. There's a kind of enforced stupidity that we have to take as players, that we're not really thinking about the future that much. So just commit yourself to that forte, and then you guys will find each other coming down. It can last a long time. He doesn't say how long it lasts, right? So, okay. Actually, give us. Okay, but you know, you have got it's a quick line going down. It's especially in a nice resonant hall like this, it's very important that it doesn't sound like a diminuendo. So you can fatten it out a little bit at the bottom. Oh, you can crescendo this. It can be, yeah. Okay, but then it didn't match her forte. It has to be bigger. Okay, but you should also sound glad that you get to the down to rum bum beam bum bee. Yeah, I'm not of a mind. You know, when you get to Mahler, and it starts to happen with Brahms, Mahler tells you he describes he mistrusted other musicians entirely and other conductors. He wanted to make sure that his music would be represented well. He describes exactly what he wants you to do with every single note, and he tells the conductor, here you are on 2, and here you are on 4, and it's the easiest thing, you know. But just because Mozart did not mark a lot, and Haydn marked almost nothing, you have to Mahlerize this music. So even though there's nothing there, he doesn't necessarily assume that in the 21st century at the Juilliard School, we're going to be playing this for Medici TV. He doesn't know that. And he doesn't really he's, of course, who played the first performance? An idea? Mozart. He played the viola. And we'll assume he made some of the notes, okay. Because I don't think he practiced much viola. But he's assumed, it's written, and this was written for someone who he owed money to. Did you know this? I forget the man's name, but it had to do with gambling debts. And Mozart, and he was a Freemason, and this was another one of the Freemasons who basically allowed him to live in a manner that somehow allowed him to mix with the nobility still. They were still living in those times. Okay. So, what am I talking about? Yeah, yum, bum, bim, bum, bim. Yeah? There's a lot that you can do which you're not doing. Use your imaginations. Okay? Yeah. Okay. That's good. Okay, good. Yeah. For me, this is a little bit below the tempo. Da-dim-bum, bim, bum, bim, bum. And after all, it's kind of a blue collar thing you're doing here, right? You're just spelling out the harmonies. It ain't no great phrase you're playing there. Ba-dum, bum, bim, bum, bim, bum. Okay? Yeah. Okay. One more time. Same. Okay, but again, I don't think it maintains the forte. Ga-dim bum bim bum bim bum, dee-dum bum bum bum. It's not excited enough to be appropriate to what they're doing. Yeah, it's funny, you have to. Chamber music has to do with, yes, personal freedom, playing your own line really, really well, but at the same time, hearing the total. You're responsible for the whole thing. Everybody plays everybody's parts, more or less. Yeah, okay? So, egg 'em on. Okay, one more time. Bim, bum, bim, bum, bim, bum. Push them forward. Push them forward. Bim, bum, bim. Not too much. Okay. Yeah. And here, these little things which are can have more shape, and they can be better differentiated. Of course, what happens in the course of this 4 bars? Harmonically? Modulates. Then we're there in B flat major, okay? But show us a little bit of minor too. We haven't had any minor yet, right? And so we want to hear a little bit of some fangs kind of growing there a little bit, and then we find a way out, okay? So where are we going to do? Okay, first one. And again, I say to you, under legato, there's always, what I always say to my fiddle students, and they know this, is that what makes the great players really great is that the notes under legato are projected as well and come out as well as any separately articulated note. Legato is the basis of the technique. If you have a great legato, hey, life is okay, Really, you feel good, and when Itzhak Perlman starts to wriggle his nose up when he's playing legato. It's always a legato. Yeah. So you got to suffer with the rest of us. Okay. That's what it's about. All right. I love it when I get a laugh out of them. I know that they're probably going to remember it. Maybe. Okay. Same thing. Yeah, but I think your response is too pretty. I think it's a little bit you're advocating C minor. I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't advocate the minor if I can possibly help it. Unless I'm really angry. Then I okay. Dee-um-bum-bum. Okay, but you're going each of them one of the same shapes, but harmonically, look. What's hard about trio is we don't have 4 voices, right? And the harmonies always sound a little bit thin. But we need that note. So even if you do that shape, make enough sound so that we hear the triad. Okay, important. Okay, but you can't lose time. Go. Just, whatever happens, happens. Gamble. You got to be willing to gamble a little bit. It's just going to happen. Okay, do it again. So, yeah. Try not playing quite as pretty. Sometimes we got to do the dishes and take the garbage out. Bum 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 bum. Just give them something that they need you to be giving them the rhythm, obviously. And so your job is to ensure that they can play together. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. You're not making. It's a pedal. Bum 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 bum. Yeah. Pretend that you're a low horn player. Second horn, fourth horn, one of those. Okay? All right. Do ya da 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 da. Yeah. And you come in forte, do you not?
Yes.
So, bum, 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 ba, ba, ba. Your first note has to be forte.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words, part of the concertante quality of this piece is that each of you introduces something new or a new dynamic. That you're standing out from the group. Yeah, and you change function big time. Your job changes. You have many, many jobs. Yeah, many, many jobs. Sometimes we're polishing the brass, and other times we're it. Okay. Yeah, for me, yum, yarum, tirum, tira, tarum, tarum, tira, gets us up to the E flat. Tara, tira, tira, yeah. And so, and then tiara, all those grace notes. Tiara, bum, 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 tarum, tarum, tiara, okay? Yeah, give me a little bow speed. Yeah, good, okay, yeah. Not too pretty. They're working here, and you gotta just give them some. Do you know any bass players? You got friends who are bass players?
Yeah.
Okay, so how would they do this? How does a bass player play that note? What do they do? Yeah, they go right? Right. What you want to do, you were kind of sustaining it, and in a way the idea is correct. We want the follow through, absolutely, but they need the front. Okay. Boink. They need the front of it.
31.
That's good. Good. Okay, yeah. And this is funny. We expect there to be another phrase here, actually, and there is not one.
Right.
So somehow, And okay, but give it a little bit. Give that cadence a little bit of more of a shape. Yeah, so it's a little more satisfying. Yeah, for some reason he wanted to, he wanted to have a little bit of a breathless quality. So let's go from from this lovely moment for you. Yeah, 39. Go for it. 39. Yeah, and crescendo it up all the way to the. And if you want to take a little lift on the bar line, you can do it. More. More. Huge. Big. Bum, bum. Okay, yeah, but that's not forte. No, you gotta, somehow you gotta create an orchestral sound sometimes. It just is that, it just is. Yeah. Okay, good. That was fine. Let's do from, what is it, 49. 49. More. Yeah, it's funny. In a way, these last 4 bars or so refer back to the first 2 bars of the piece. They're that kind of calm and so I wouldn't do too expressive. Yeah, think of the first 2 bars how you played them, which was so great. I liked it. Okay, so and make sure there's enough sound in the legato. Okay. Yeah, in legato. Okay, so we do right from there. 68 is good. Yeah, and both this time and at the end of the piece, I didn't feel, this is a very long harmonica paginatura, correct? So you're going and you're kind of waiting instead of a longer shape. It's a surprise, Yeah, give it a long shape. Okay, one more time, Sam, and we go on. You can delay this last bar slightly. Yeah? It comes a little bit early for my taste. So they have time to hear it. It's kind of coming at them too fast. One more time. That's the hard one. That's a real. You got to be careful with the 5th bar here, because we really don't expect it, right? What is it? C sharp 7 chord or something like that,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's very remote, and he's going to slide sideways to get to D major in the next one. Dee-da, 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 dee-da. Be very gentle about how you, don't hit it.
Okay.
Don't hit the front. So, dee-da-da, dee-da, okay? Try from the development. That's right. Yeah. So this is again. You got to change your job in a big way, right? You're going yeah, yeah. It's hard. We're really juggling here, aren't we? When we're a trio, we're really juggling the way in which we address the string and what our job really is in terms of whether it's support or yeah. Okay. Da dee da da. Oh, soft landing. Yeah. Okay. This little funny thing that you have, this melody, bum beam bum bee I don't think it's that pretty. I just don't think so. Okay. It's supposed to be a little, this is kind of scary music from the 18th century. It's a little bit creepy, you know. Yeah. And then when you get to the nice, he's sorry for what he's done. He gives you that and yeah, okay. We need some tension. You know, your job and my job when I perform, and as I used to perform, is to make these people uncomfortable. You know, and to ask hard questions and throw dissonances at them and syncopations at them and make them feel like, what is going on? What are these people doing? And what did that composer write? And then you make it feel better. Then you throw a really nice cadence at them and say, oh, I feel better. But they don't really, but they just think they do. Yeah. So that's the job, okay? And occasionally it's big tensions and a big cadence, like at the end of Beethoven 9 or Mahler 2 or something like that. And sometimes it's not, yeah. But that's how we got to create that tension to make this work. So the question is, what are the tension-raising mechanisms mechanisms that a composer uses in his tool or her toolbox? And it's a long list. There are a lot of them. There's pedal tones and dissonances and deceptive cadences and subito pianos, and you got to catalog them because that's your job. Okay? Okay. All right. And then cadences make us feel better, or worse if it's a terrible cadence into the minor. Oh God, end of the world. Okay. All right. Let's do for the forte. Yeah. And you should be competing. You're outnumbered here, but you got to compete. This should be a competitive moment in stretto. Okay, yeah, but the thing is, you've got a sequence going down for 3 bars. So you can't play that piano because we want to. We want to come down from it, make it a mezzo piano. Okay, makes sense? Is my time up? Okay. Well, anyway, wonderful playing. Aren't they terrific? Give them a hand.